What's going on? I'm Suggs, and this is gonna be a Suggsview Top 10! Woo! Today I'm gonna be running down my top 10 favorite episodes of the Real Ghostbusters. Not the Ghostbusters show from the 70s, not that other Ghostbusters cartoon from the 80s, not the movies, not my hopes and anticipation for the upcoming new movie whenever it decides to be done and released and things, or the extreme Ghostbusters from the late 90s, early 2000s, even though that's a great show. I'm going to be talking about my favorite Real Ghostbusters episodes, because when I was a kid, there were a few things that I just absolutely loved. Some video games, you know, I was big into wrestling. I loved me some WWFF, hello, wrestling, and a few other things. But the main one, as far as TV shows go, was the Real Ghostbusters. So I wanted to share with you guys what I loved about it so much, and the episodes that exemplify why I love this show so much. So I invite you to join me in reliving my favorite Real Ghostbusters episodes. Here we go. Number 10, the Ghostbusters in Paris. What? This episode starts off with three maintenance workers at the Eiffel Tower, and they just randomly stumble across this office at the top of the tower. Well, not stumble across, they know it was there, but they're not supposed to go in, but they go in to rest. Might I add that these three French, maintenance workers in Paris all have mustaches. And as this episode goes on, you realize that every French man has a mustache. Stereotypes aside, they discover this sort of like steampunky, kind of Edison-y, kind of light bulby contraption. They manage to break the thing. All of a sudden, ghosts, hauntings, all these ghosts are all of a sudden appearing at the Eiffel Tower, and that just won't do. Because what other industry does France have other than tourism to the Eiffel Tower? None. So high-ranking French officials traveled to the home of the Real Ghostbusters, New York City. They essentially asked them to come and solve their Eiffel Tower ghost problem now. For some bizarre reason, the Ghostbusters reluctantly accept a free trip to Paris, to gay Paris. And then the next scene is a montage of them enjoying touristy things in Paris. Why so reluctant, Ghostbusters? So they take in the sights other than the obvious, the Eiffel Tower, and finally they get to their mission. So as stupid as this episode sounds so far, this is really the point where it takes off, where the Ghostbusters actually get to the Eiffel Tower and realize there are a buttload of ghosts here. Might I add, these ghosts are really poorly animated, well drawn, and then really poorly animated. So the Ghostbusters make their way to the top of the tower, which is actually a really cool scene between use of the stairs. There are stairs up to the top of the Eiffel Tower, and between use of the elevator. It's a really cool mechanism that the writers use to get them to the top, and the things they encounter along the way. So finally the Ghostbusters do get to the top, and they find this office that these three, French stereotypical maintenance workers had found at the start. They found this broken devicey thing, Edison thing. Egon quickly puts two and Blue Shoe together and realizes that the Eiffel Tower is the largest ghost containment unit in the world. Mind freaking blown. It's not just a gimmick episode, let's put our characters in another city and see what happens, but they actually utilize that landmark, utilize that structure, that famous structure of the Eiffel Tower in such a way that makes the episode interesting and engaging. So otherwise, the Ghostbusters in Paris is a great blend of humor minus the stereotypical depictions of French people and action. It's definitely worth your while. Check that shit out. Number 9, Cool Cash, Hot Water. That's a cool episode name. So the episode kicks off with Peter's dad. Papa Venkman, Daddy Venkman, Peter Venkman Sr., John I don't know. And he's calling Peter from Alaska. Now, Peter's dad is a con man and uses the Ghostbusters and their name to his advantage. So Peter's dad says, something has emerged from the ice up in Alaska. What? You know, Alaska, that part of the States that isn't actually connected to the States, it's connected to Canada, but Russia sold it to America. Huh? So even though Papa Venkman will talk about what has emerged from the ice on the phone, he says to mention to Egon that it might be Hob and Nagaric, Javier, Javi. For the sake of the rest of this one, we're just gonna call him Hob. So Hob was the fire demon of Inuit legend who was sent to rule over the earth. But then the Inuit people rose up and defeated Hob, and using magic froze him in this black ice rectangular thing, sank him to the bottom of the sea. So with Hob being frozen, all the heat left the north, and the Ice Age began. The North remembers. So the boys get to Alaska, and Peter's dad takes them out to the rectangular ice black ice thing. And, you know, was giving off crazy high PKE readings. And of course the boys want to destroy it. Like, obviously they want to destroy it, but nah. Bring on Sha-na-na. Peter's dad wants to trap Hob and bring him back to New York City. Put him on display. The next day the boys go back and they destroy it. This you know, magic piece of ice, it just obliterates. They destroyed magic. But little do they know, somehow Johnny Switcheroo Venkman, he just had some random black ice rectangle thing like sitting in the back of his house. Oh, I have that for another occasion. So he swindles the real frozen Hob back to NYC, and thus the King Kong parody comes to full force. But really, I like that they parodied King Kong because they did it with reverence and they did it with respect for the original source material and did it in a fun way. Of course, as always, there's some great humor in this episode, but what I love is that they actually created this lore about Hob. Hob also looks great. There's a lot of destruction, like King Kong Godzilla style destruction. Check it out. So number 8 is an episode called Knock Knock. So essentially what happens in the episode Knock Knock is that there are some maintenance workers, you know, working on the New York City subway. And one of the lines, whatever, what do they discover? In a very typical Ghostbusters fashion, some workers discover something in some random location kind of thing. What do they discover? The gate of hell. Freak, boom! Like, they don't call it hell. It's to the underworld. What they call it is the gates to the underworld or gates of the underworld, whatever, but they refer to hell as the underworld, which I get. It's 80s. It's a kid's show. There's this like devil face on the gate, or like it looks more like a bull or something with horns. It's whatever, but it says do not open until doomsday. And talking door to hell. hell, and somehow the maintenance workers, holy crap, they open the gate to hell. And all this stuff sort of seeps out into the New York City subway line, and it's actually really well animated. It's cool how it's very cave-like and hellish, and there's this mythical tree with this awesome I assume Frank Welker voice, which is hilarious.
Have a nice day!
But it's them going through the now converting into hell New York City subway lines. You know, they're venturing to that gate to close it, and I don't know, I guess it was hard to conceptualize. I couldn't imagine being one of the writers, especially for a kids show, and conceptualizing what hell would look like, or what, when they got to this open gate, what that would look like. It was an odd thing to see, but they still made it work, and it was just a very cool episode. So number 7, I got nothing. Venkman's Ghost Repellers. And this is one of those episodes that, when I was making this list, I wondered, are these episodes really that good, or is this just nostalgia pushing me in that direction? As quite a few episodes are on this list, they're on these VHSs I have here. So they're quite strong in my mind. I remember them really well. But they are some of my favorite episodes, so it's hard to distinguish between great episode and nostalgia, because nostalgia is a hell of a drug. So what Venkman's Ghost Repellers is about, there's this ship somewhere off the coast of New Jersey or New York, and it mysteriously disappears in this weird shape, electric, like triangles and things. Parallelogram? I don't know. But it just mysteriously disappears. And in the next scene, Janine has this
darling poncho.
It's you. It's definitely you.
That she throws at Peter and says, like, what's the deal with this poncho? And he looks at the tag and it says Venkman's Ghost Repellers. And this is actually another episode with Peter Venkman's dad, Peter Venkman Sr., Mr. Venkman, Papa Venkman, Daddy Venkman, I don't know. So what Peter's dad has done is he's developed these ponchos. Why ponchos? That repel ghosts, apparently. Here he is yet again being a con man, using the Ghostbusters name to make some cassioles, as my buddy Ben used to say, or some Skrilla, as it really is called. You know, Peter gets really upset with his dad for developing this and using his name. What Peter's dad does is sells a bunch of these to a ship that's going out into the sea to research a phenomena called the New Jersey parallelogram. It's kind of freaking awesome. Obviously, this is a play or a parody on a Bermuda Triangle kind of thing, somewhere where ships disappear mysteriously. I haven't looked a lot into the history of the Bermuda Triangle, but it is a really cool sort of supernatural, not Jared Padalecki and Jensen Ackles, Jensen, Moose and Squirrel, not that supernatural. It is a really cool idea, and to utilize that as a Ghostbusters episode idea or storyline is also really cool. So this ship that goes to research it disappears.
Whoa!
The Ghostbusters, partly to protect Peter's name and the name of the Ghostbusters, go to figure out what happened to the ship, and they also get sucked into the New Jersey parallelogram.
Nuts.
And there's this whole other dimension they get sucked into. Peter's father actually gets sucked in as well, because he went to save the guys that he screwed over by telling them his poncho would prevent them from being sucked in, kind of thing. And it's just a really cool episode. A lot of cool, kind of cool ghosts. They look kind of like origami, but the cooler part is all the different ships that you see in here, and there's some like vector graphics at one point, and I don't know, it's just a really interesting episode, a really cool idea for an episode, and you definitely gotta watch Venkman's Ghost Repellers. So number 6 is Ghostbuster of the Year. What an awesome episode. I really, really like this episode. The episode actually starts, and it's about a 5-minute scene of them just on a random mission, and there's this ghost, this fat ghost, I don't know how to describe him, pretty cool looking ghost, vicious kind of ghost, who's haunting this New York City bus station, and it's actually a really cool battle between the Ghostbusters and this kind of vicious ghost, and it has nothing to do with the episode, but it's a really cool, let's jump into their lives at a random moment kind of scene. And it ends with, this huge crowd cheering on the Ghostbusters. Ghostbuster theme hits. I don't like the number of time the Ghostbusters theme hits. Like, you have other songs. You have other songs. You have other great songs. You have other great little pieces of music to utilize. And even silence, as far as music goes, no music is also, it doesn't matter. When they're done, this lady approaches them about this competition, her magazine or the owner of this publication company wants to do, kind of thing. The Ghostbuster of the Year sort of competition, and he's the publisher of Spooks Weekly and Boo magazine, and she challenges them to get rid of this ghost in this giant mansion somewhere in New York. Now, this mansion is on the top of like this mountain. There's all this fake snow because this man was so filthy wealthy, filthy rich, got that Skrilla. But the Ghostbusters have 24 hours to get rid of this ghost, and whoever wins, they work independently in this episode. Whoever wins is the Ghostbuster of the Year, and it's a really cool way to see the characters working on their own.
I've been shocked.
And just to sort of highlight how strong these characters are, and of course they come together in the end and work together as a team because they're strongest as a team, teamwork, work ethic. It's just a really well done episode. I'm not sure offhand what movie they're referencing, but there's this whole Rosebud thing, which I think the Simpsons also parodied at one point. I should probably splice or something. We'll scroll about what they're referencing there. But it's just a really cool episode and definitely worth your time. So check out that Skrilla. It's my turn, take my swing.